can you still hear the gentle snip of scissors and the low hum of conversation echoing beneath the buzz of clippers? In the 1950s, the barbershop was so much more than a place for a trim. It was a cornerstone of Main Street life, where generations gathered for fresh cuts and even fresher gossip. The warm aroma of shaving cream mingled with the sharp scent of aftershave, and the familiar striped poles spinning outside promised a haven of tradition. Inside, leather chairs creaked beneath you, the steady hand of the neighborhood barber sculpting every part with practiced precision. Beyond the haircuts, it was a place where secrets were swapped, laughter was shared, and life's milestones were quietly celebrated in worn mirrors. Can you picture the checkerboard floors and hear the radio crooning gentle tunes in the background? As you recall those familiar textures and voices, you might find yourself wondering, what made these barbershops so timeless? Let's step back into the heyday of classic style and rediscover why that cherished chair meant so much to so many. Step through the doors of a 1950s barbershop and you're not just crossing a threshold, you're entering a world with deep roots in American history. The heyday of the 1950s barbershop didn't spring up overnight. It was the result of decades of tradition, adaptation, and gradual evolution, stretching back to before the turn of the century. Just imagine the barbershop as a constant thread winding through generations of American life, shifting, expanding, but always belonging at the heart of the community. Barbershops first appeared in America as early as the 19th century, but their earlier forms were often accompanied by a medical twist. Did you know the iconic barber pole's red and white stripes actually trace back to days when barbers performed bloodletting and other minor surgeries? The pole was both a literal and symbolic sign, advertising services that today would have patients fainting at the thought. By the 20th century, barbers had hung up their medical aprons and settled fully into the role of grooming expert, yet the pole remained a badge of trust and continuity. By the roaring 1920s and the economic swell of the 1930s, barbershops had already become social hubs, a tradition that only deepened as communities rebuilt during and after World War II. When the 1950s dawned, a sense of optimism returned to the American home front, and the barbershop flourished like never before. The country was riding the tailwind of prosperity, suburbs bloomed, and families flocked to main streets where the barbershop was an undeniable fixture. Even small towns usually boasted at least one, its striped pole spinning hope and routine for all to see. But what made the 50s barbershop feel so different from its predecessors and so inextricable from post-war American identity? Unlike the bustling unisex salons that would come later, the 50s barbershop was a men's domain, a place where fathers took their sons for their very first trim, where war veterans swapped stories about service, and where the rituals of manhood were quietly passed from one head of hair to another. Have you ever wondered why the barbershop felt like a rite of passage instead of just an errand? The answer lies partly in what was happening beyond its doors. Consider the broader setting of 1950s America. This was a nation on the move, shaped by the rapid expansion of suburbs, the rise of the nuclear family, and an increasing focus on appearance and respectability. Looking sharp was more than a personal preference. It was seen as a sign of dignity and belonging. The weekly trip to the local barbershop became almost ceremonial. Little boys eagerly anticipated their turn in the chair, eyeing the gleaming tools and jars of blue Barbicide, while older men relished the opportunity to shoot the breeze and escape the workday grind. Here's a twist you might not expect. The clientele included some of the most influential minds of the mid-20th century. Politicians, businessmen, and even Hollywood actors, when visiting smaller towns, would often seek out the local barbershop for a bit of anonymity and unfiltered conversation. The big stars might have had private stylists in Los Angeles, but everyone, from factory foreman to football coach, understood the draw of the neighborhood. Shop. In a sense, the barbershop was an early equalizer, a space where social distinctions blurred, and everyone was simply a customer in need of a trim. Surprisingly, barbershops in the 1950s were also quietly at the center of neighborhood news and information. Long before the days of instant messaging, the barbershop was the information superhighway, a place where you could find out who had gotten a new job, whose son was home from the service, or which shop down the street had just opened. Did you ever hear a bit of news while waiting in that line of chairs that left you stunned or secretly delighted, feeling as if you'd gained access to the social pulse of your town? It's a wonder how much you could learn just by sitting quietly, half listening to the banter around you. Another lesser-known tidbit. During the tense years of the Cold War, barbershops were considered so central to public life that they appeared in more than one government-funded public service video, instructing barbers on how to discuss civil defense and spread reliable information to the public. Can you imagine sitting down for a shave and being handed a pamphlet on how to build a family fallout shelter just in case? Who would have thought that between talk of last night's ball game and this year's fair, you might pick up pointers on atomic preparedness? As commerce and community intertwined, the layout of local barbershops reflected their dual roles. The building itself was modest, often just a single cozy room with a front window that framed the shop like a living diorama. Some of the earliest shops boasted beautifully tiled entrances and ornate fixtures, leftovers from even more glamorous days, while others were as plain as patched jeans, proof that style and substance didn't always need fancy wrappings. Either way, the shop's very presence on the main drag reinforced its status as a town landmark, especially for newcomers seeking a foothold in local traditions. What about the barber himself, that steady-handed charioteer behind the chair? From the very start, he was more than just a haircut technician. He was a confidant, a counselor, sometimes even peacemaker in local disputes. Have you ever noticed how the simple act of trimming hair could transform a quiet, even shy man into the life of the room? There's a reason why so many barbers went on to become town aldermen, community leaders, and even minor celebrities, an influence that would only grow in the colourful decades ahead. And throughout this early evolution, children quickly learned that the barbershop was a space of both order and adventure. Boys gripped the leather armrests, eyes wide as the twirling pole beckoned, while outside, bicycles piled up on the curb showed that a haircut wasn't just an obligation, but an event, sometimes followed by a trip to the corner soda fountain. Mothers might have kept an eye on the clock, but for many, waiting in that shop felt almost timeless, the passing of minutes marked only by the swish of a comb or the clack of a broom as the barber whisked away clippings. As the decade unfolded, the classic 50s barbershop style, bright white towels, glass jars of combs, sterilizing in blue liquid, clean mirrored backdrops, grew out of these early roots. Yet even as barbershops began to modernize, their soul remained tethered to the traditions established generations before. What is it about these rituals that persists in memory long after the clippers have been set aside? Is it the sense of continuity, that whatever else changed, loyalty to your local barber was a constant? The echoes of those early years still ring in the details we remember, fathers and sons sharing the same chair, the creak of old floorboards, the patchwork rhythm of conversation and laughter. Looking back, it's clear the 1950s barbershop was never just about the cut. It was about the community, the continuity, and the careful hands guiding each transformation. But the evolution of the barbershop didn't stop at its roots, far from it. As the 1950s rolled on, new styles, inventions, and trends would transform the humble neighborhood barbershop into an institution of unmistakable class and innovation. So what were the tools and techniques that set the barbers of the 50s apart from all who came before? The answer, as you'll soon discover, lies in the classic crafts and cutting-edge inventions that defined a generation's sense of style. And so, as we finish our journey through the classic world of 1950s barbershops, it's easy to see why these humble establishments left such a lasting mark on our memories and our hometowns. We've revisited the comforting embrace of the well-worn barber's chair, the swirl of aftershave in the morning air, and the steady rhythm of clippers that could settle nerves or ignite lively conversation. The 50s barbershop, with its bright towels, polished mirrors, and checkerboard floors, was more than just a place to tidy up your appearance. It was a place where generations came together, where the community's stories, laughter, and even the occasional friendly debate found a home. We remembered how the barber himself wasn't just a craftsman, but a confidant, an advisor, and even at times a peacekeeper, always keeping an eye on the comings and goings of the neighborhood while never missing a beat with his tools. The traditions established in those years, the father and son outings, the handshake at the end of every cut, and the friendly nod to familiar faces, set a standard for hospitality and belonging that's hard to find today. Looking back, these shops were a reflection of an era when connection mattered more than convenience, and a fresh haircut meant more than just personal grooming. The barbershop stood as an everyday ritual, a dependable marker of time, where young boys awaited their turn for the grown-up cape, and older men found a sense of purpose and camaraderie with every visit. Perhaps the greatest legacy of 1950s barbershops isn't in the fading photographs or vintage tools some of us may have tucked away, but in the role they played, anchoring our communities and shaping our sense of self. The act of sitting in that weathered chair, with the quiet anticipation of transformation, reminds us of a time when life moved just a little slower, and every visit was a chance to engage with the world around you. Does thinking about those gentle mornings and easy afternoons in the barbershop stir up memories for you too? When was the last time you walked into a place that felt as welcoming, as comforting, and as full of simple pleasures as your childhood barbershop? Maybe it was the warm greeting, the smile from the barber who had watched you grow from your very first trim, or the way the sun filtered through those front windows while you waited your turn, listening to stories from a generation before. If you found yourself smiling at a memory, we'd love to hear about it. Share your most cherished barbershop stories in the comments. Whether it's the name of the barber who always remembered your favorite style, the special trips with your father or grandfather, or simply the unique smell that meant you were right where you belonged. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more journeys full of nostalgia, and pass this along to friends who might enjoy walking down memory lane with us. We'll be bringing new stories soon to keep the memories alive and celebrate the everyday traditions that made our childhoods so special. After all, even as times and styles change, the heart of the barbershop, the companionship, the trust, and the laughter endures. So here's to those classic chairs and the hands that shaped generations. Until next time, may every memory be as smooth as a fresh shave and as enduring as a well-told tale.